And yes, thanks Nick for helping us out. This meeting is going to be recorded for the sake of folks that couldn't be here tonight. So I wanted to welcome returning members of the 44th Assembly District Committee, and especially welcome our new members who are joining for the first time, and also our honorary members, and we'll talk more about that a little later. But as many of you know, this year, the leadership of the Kings County Democratic Party has tried to divide us. And I'm hoping that tonight and going forward, we can respond by working together and welcoming everyone who wants to participate in building a better local party. So I hope that can be our response to what's been going on. And we're going to talk about that more later in this meeting. So for those of you who are new, what is an Assembly District Committee? It's specified in the party rules that every Assembly District will have a committee of all the county committee members in that district, but the rules don't specify what those committees are supposed to do. In the past, they've only formed when they were needed for a special election. But we started this one back in 2019 because we felt, that county committee members could do more than just sit around and wait until there's a special election. We could be reaching out to voters. We could be, making plans for, what our party could be, how it could be better. And we've been doing that ever since, meeting a couple times a year. And we've had some success, but it's definitely been a learning process. We revised our ADC rules to limit it to no more than 4 proxies per person, which I think is an important step forward that I hope our larger party would take, so nobody can walk into the meeting holding more votes than everybody in the room. We have collaborated on forums where voters got to hear from candidates, and we've organized, committee meetings to work on specific issues that were important in our district. I hope we can keep doing that and keep building on that work. So we have a packed agenda for tonight. We're going to elect officers and talk about some important topics. But first, I wanted to welcome some of our elected officials, and I wanted to start with our Assembly member, Robert Carroll. I'm going to introduce him. If he can just give us a 3-minute update on what he's working on right now, and then take a few questions, that would be wonderful. Thanks for joining us, Assembly member.
Thank you so much, Tony, for having me. First, let me echo what Tony said. It was very frustrating that we had a county leader who tried to divide folks throughout the borough and spent money and time running competitive county committee and judicial delegate races. And now when we have 4 competitive Assembly district and 2 competitive state Senate district races with Republicans, she does nothing. It's really, really shocking when we are seeing real assaults on our democracy and many sitting members of the Democratic Party in Albany likely to lose their seats or could lose their seats and could use the help. So this is so integral in building a vibrant and strong Democratic Party. So I thank you for all participating. Obviously, I just want to urge folks, early voting has started. If you haven't voted, please go out and vote. Please spread the word. This is going to unfortunately be a very, very close election. Next year, when we get back to Albany, if we want to do progressive things, we need to have clear majorities in the Assembly and Senate, and those are at risk. We also need to have a Democratic governor, and that is at risk. So I urge you to go out and vote. Next year, no matter what happens, will be a tough year because we are facing a budget deficit. That being said, the state has spent money last year in a rainy day fund. So hopefully we'll be able to weather that storm. But I don't want to take up too much time. My phone is about to die. I'd love to take a couple of questions very quickly from the audience, if there are any. Tony?
Sorry, we're having a technical difficulty. If you can just hold for 1 second so we can get the audio working on the Zoom again. Just pause for 1 second. Okay, I think we sorted it out. Does anybody have questions? If you have a question for the Assembly member, either use the raise hand function on Zoom, or you can raise your hand in the room and we'll pass you the mic. No questions? Someone must have a question. Okay, Debbie Herdan, do you want to just come forward so people can see you? Turning it over to Debbie.
Hi, as a member of this committee and also, can you hear me? Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm close. All right, I wanted to say that I'm still concerned about an issue in our neighborhood, which is Church Avenue and Ocean Parkway. I'm very concerned about it, and it's been bouncing back and forth between the city DOT and the state DOT, and I feel like there's no resolution. The other thing is the Caton Avenue, if we could get an update on Caton Avenue and the construction work there. I feel like these are difficult issues that we face in our neighborhood every day.
They're very difficult issues, Debbie. Look, I know them well. We had a town hall about Caton Avenue and East Fifth Street and the detours, as well as the ongoing construction on the Caton Avenue Bridge that was supposed to end in November of 2020, and now we're in November of 2022, 2 years later. They say it'll be done by January. I'll believe it when I see it. But we are in constant contact. I agree with you, Debbie. You know I care about this issue. We desperately need DOT on the state and the city, as well as NYPD, to actually enforce the traffic rules and come up with a sane traffic pattern for what's going on there. My parents live about a block and a half away from you. My chief of staff lives half a block away from you. I am highly familiar with that intersection. I grew up about a block and a half from that intersection. It is very, very dangerous. And so please feel free, let's talk offline about just more concrete updates, but I loud and clear. Also, one other thing, I just want to remind folks to vote for Prop 1, the Environmental Bond Act, on your ballot. Really, really important to make sure that we get clean water infrastructure, protect things like the Adirondack Park and Catskill State Park, wetlands, flood prevention. So please remember to vote yes on Prop 1.
Okay, thanks very much, Bobby. I think we have one other question. Do you want to come forward?
This one is just a question about the e-bikes and electronic vehicles that keep getting, not on the roads, but on the sidewalks and just danger. And I've heard a lot from a lot of different people in our district about their concerns over the safety and just getting some form of legislature or attention about the issue, really, both legislator and that would be great. So that's my...
Look, it's a huge issue. Just a couple of weeks ago on 9th Street, an elderly woman was hit and massively injured because of an e-bike. There are issues with e-bikes on sidewalks, in the park, in places where they're not supposed to be. We need to have a holistic approach that doesn't criminalize delivery workers, doesn't criminalize folks who are using bike lanes and using these bikes appropriately, and appropriately used, I support them. However, we need to make sure that folks are not using these as basically souped up dirt bikes and disregarding all traffic laws. They should not be allowed to be on sidewalks, and we need to make sure that food delivery apps and other things are appropriately held liable, because I don't want to hold liable somebody who is an undocumented immigrant who is being incentivized to deliver as many, food items as possible, as quickly as possible. We need to make sure that we're cracking down on these apps to make sure that they have a business practice that is appropriate, and that if they don't, we come after them and hold them liable for the damage that they cause. There can be a balance. We've talked to the 78th precinct, the 72nd, and the 70th and 66th on a number of occasions about smart enforcement. I think we need to have a coming together that folks, are willing to do. It's a very tough issue. I understand.
Thanks for that. I think we have time for one more question. If you want to come forward. Just watch your step on those cables here.
Hi, I'm here to rep my block in the area called Beverly Square West, which is part of Ditmas Park. And I am one of those people that, among other neighbors, who suffered a great deal during some of these floods that we've been having. I noticed that there was somebody from DEP cleaning up Albemarle Road, Prospect Park South, which is great. But I'd like to get them to go through the neighborhood. And I'm wondering what kind of infrastructure money might be coming our way to the city to deal with things like sewers, which is critical.
It's a great question. So if DEP, one of the reasons DEP came to Albemarle Road was because some of your neighbors called my office and we called DEP and we had them clean out sewers. So if your block floods, which so many blocks in Ditmas Park, as well as throughout my district flood every time there is a severe rainstorm, please, please, please do not hesitate to call my office. We are happy to help expedite DEP coming out to make sure that at a bare minimum, sewers are cleared so that there is some drainage. Unfortunately, some of these sewers are overloaded and we need to come up with other mitigating factors. I actually sat down with some of your neighbors to talk about ways to build, possibly incentivize the building of dry wells by DEP inside our roadways for those very, very large rain events. And we're still researching that. Further, talking about the Environmental Bond Act and voting yes on Prop 1, this is part of why we need the Environmental Bond Act, for the state to take out a massive mortgage, billions of dollars to do things like rainwater infrastructure throughout the state. It's desperately needed. And if we don't do it, we're going to see more and more flooding, especially in the flatlands and lowlands of Brooklyn.
Great. I'm just wondering if any of the federal infrastructure money is coming to us for that purpose.
You know, you would have to ask our Congress member or senator. You know, I know that there's large amounts of money that's been earmarked. I don't know exactly where it is. And so we could try to, if you give my office a call, we could try to help connect you and figure out if there's anything from the Federal Rescue Plan or the Infrastructure Act that will trickle down to Brooklyn.
That would be great. Thank you. Traffic is my next issue, but for another time.
Call my office, please. Please call my office.
Thanks. Okay, well, thanks so much, Assembly Member, for joining us. I think we need to move on with our agenda, but we really appreciate you taking the time. And I wanted to see if District Leader Doug Schneider is here, if he could speak for just 3 minutes, update on what he's working on, and then we can take a couple questions for him.
Sure. Tony, I thought that Lori was going to go first.
I don't think Lori is in the Zoom yet. Oh, she is. Sorry. Okay, let's start with District Leader Lori Citron-Mapel then.
Lori, unmute Lori.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we hear you.
So we're in the middle of early voting, and it is a very, very difficult process. We have 9 days of early voting, and then, of course, Election Day. The last 2 days, our two biggest polls, last few days, over the weekend, our two biggest polls in Park Slope, John Jay and the Armory, have had approximately 800 voters at each poll site, and yesterday and today, approximately 500 voters at each poll site. It is, for me, a full-time job. It is ridiculously difficult, as we have 5 locations and several hundred people that would like to work. the main thing is that we want people to commit to all 9 days so that we have an easier flow of it. Most of these people would like a day here or a day there, and that's fine. And the Board of Elections give them some incentive if you work 4 days, but it's not possible. I also have absolutely no access to the board's computers, which makes it doubly difficult because we have to go through channels each and every time I want to appoint or change a position. I'm just giving you the background because it's something that I don't feel the Board of Election workers, I think they're working very hard. But I think this is something that has to be done with legislation in terms of somehow changing the process and making it much more easier if this is how we're going to do. Also, in years past, we have limited Republicans enrolled in our district. And so I was able to fill those Republican spots with additional Democratic workers. They have put an end to that. So we have several poll sites where we have too few workers. Our Democrats are all there. The Republicans are not. And we need the hands-on in order to expedite people coming in, especially at peak hours. So those are the basics. I'd like to take a few questions and also ask that everybody helps in the two biggest races or two biggest races, Gennardis and Max Rose. Either to be watchers or to help them on election day, and of course phone banking and all the great things that CBID, all the activities that they have planned. And it's rather exhausting. So I'd like to hear questions from people and I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Lori. So it looks like we have a question in the room. And if you have a question on Zoom, please just use the raise hand function and we will call on you. So I'm going to welcome back Debbie Herdin.
Hi, how much education is out there about the redistricting? Because I know I have a new state senator, Zelma Myrie, but I have not received any official anything from anyone telling me that.
Well, I don't think I can answer that because I don't have that information.
Candidate, right, for the Democratic Party and he's, now in our district, in some of our AD 44 districts.
Well, right. Well, the lines have been out, and I think Bobby can speak to it as well. The Senate lines have been out and approved. The Assembly lines are still in flux. We're using the ones that were approved, but from what my understanding is they're not formally approved again, and they're working on new maps. So we may see changes in the near future again within the year.
I guess my question is, why doesn't the Democratic County Committee educate people about who's running? There's just absolutely nothing. And does everybody know who Zelma Myrie is? Do you know if he's going to be your new state senator? If all the people in this room know, I'd be surprised. And then if everybody in the area where he's moving into knew, I would be, no. If even 15% of the people knew, I think I would be shocked. So it's just, anyway, it's just, I feel like our time is wasted. These are the types of issues we need to be working on, like educating the public, getting out the vote, educating the public about all these, the redistricting and who's their candidate and why they should vote for them.
Well, I think we have to focus right now on the seats we're losing, not losing, but the seats in competition between the Democrats and the Republicans next week in the general election. So for now, your point is well taken, but for now, I think we really need to concentrate on those districts that are in play.
All right, well, thanks for that question, and thanks, Lori. Do we have we could probably have time for one more question. Anyone on Zoom or anyone here? Okay, yes, Eliana.
Hi, just kind of on an extension of Debbie's very good point. There's 4 ballot initiatives on the ballot. It's my impression that I should vote yes on all four, but if anyone has an expert opinion, I want to hear it, please. Bobby Carroll said we should vote yes on number one.
My understanding is that the initiatives 3 and 4 have been put forward.
Oh, wait, just a sec, we're going to give you a microphone so the people on Zoom can hear you.
Hi, I'm Jack Carroll. Hello, Lori. How are you? My understanding is the environmental bond issue is a no-brainer. That is one that Bobby has already spoken to. On the initiatives 2, 3, and 4, they've been put forward in order to promote or try to promote and put a mechanism in place in New York City to provide for greater equality. And it's going to make proposals as on both economic, social, cultural, political issues, which then would have to be adopted by the city council or the government, but it's establishing a series of commissions that would evaluate things like the true cost of living in New York City, what can be done by city government to help people who are in need, how to provide for, migrants, how to provide for refugees, things of that sort. The general consensus in the liberal community, and I guess we're here, we're Democrats, we're probably liberal, is that those are worthwhile things to do. Understanding that they would then all have to be vetted and they would have to be passed by the legislature after recommendations were made by these commissions. So I would vote yes on them, if that's my opinion.
There should have been better outreach, I agree, but there was not.
Thanks, Jack. We're also going to hear a quick question from Terry.
Hi, my name is Terry. It's not really a question, it's just I wanted to add to this gentleman's comments. I voted yesterday at the Armory, and there is a pamphlet, very well done, explaining in detail each proposal. So if you don't know what to do, I took 10 minutes, I sat down, it was nice, it was late evening, they had an late open night, and it explains the proposals, and it's pretty clear, understandable. What I didn't know is that they have to be voted on. That wasn't me. I thought we were voting for the proposal. I didn't realize it was just a proposal to elect a committee that's going to later on vote on this. It's not clear.
If there was legislation put forward or suggested by this group, if there was legislation put forward or suggested by these commissions, it would then have to be enacted into law. These guys can't act by fiat. What they're doing is they're evaluating the problem. The city council put these things on the ballot because they felt we needed to focus on these issues. And, and it's probably a good idea.
Okay, thanks, Terry and Jack, and thanks, Lori. So I think now, here, I'm going to switch back to the other mic.
Have Tony?
Yes, go ahead.
I guess, can you hear me still?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, I missed the beginning, obviously, of your introduction, and have you touched upon what happens at the county committee meeting regarding our delegates?
Yes, we're going to talk about our appointees and the judicial delegates later in this meeting. So we'd love it if you could stick around for that.
Okay.
We are going to speak with that. So thank you so much. I think we need to move on because we have a packed agenda. So I would like to get back to District Leader Doug Schneider, but thanks so much, Lori, for taking the time. Doug, if you could just give us a 3-minute update and then take a couple questions.
Sure. Thanks, Tony, and welcome back to all of our returning county committee members. Welcome to the club, to all of our new county committee members. I will start where I like to start around election season, and that is to say that we all owe a debt of gratitude to my co-leader, Lori Nipel. Nobody works harder than she does to staff poll sites, and the 44th is routinely regarded as some of the best run poll sites in the city. I'll share a text message that I got earlier in the week just voted early at the Armory. What a well-run poll site. Miles ahead of blank, where I used to vote early. The poll workers were so well trained. And that's really a testament to the work that Lori does to make sure that our poll workers are experienced, trained, and our poll sites are well staffed. So I just give my debt of gratitude and hope everyone will to Lori. To quickly answer Debbie Herdan's question from earlier, number one, I don't know if she'll be joining later, but Ariel Merkel is a phenomenal employee at the Board of Elections, and she may be able to give insight into the work or lack of work that the Board of Elections did to notify people of changes in their districts, in their poll sites, etc. In terms of, outreach, if you have a new state senator, if you have a new assembly member and they're running in a race and you don't know who they are, in the first instance, that's because, that has to be with the candidate. That's disappointing. And it's our job as the Democratic Party to really supplement that with our outreach. And I don't know if people have seen the articles about the lack of activity within the Brooklyn Democratic Party in supporting candidates. And I think that, it's upsetting to me, and it should be to all of us, that it seems like we spend more time and money trying to defeat fellow county committee members than we do Republicans. And we have real races in Brooklyn. There are assembly districts where we have incumbents who are in real trouble. And we have state Senate districts that were just created that are going to be a dogfight. And so, in past times, we've had the luxury of just knowing that the Democrats going to win, so we can just sit there and fight with each other. But that's not true anymore. We've seen the Republicans pick up and pick up and pick up, not just in other places, but in Brooklyn, where we have and people will object, but I'm going to continue to say it, the largest local Democratic Party, in the country. Just don't tell Chicago or LA that I said that. And so that has to change. Right. And we have to figure out a way. We have to revisit our strategy of making that happen. And we always have to remember what the end goal is. Right. We're not seeking, and we need to change the narrative about this. Right. We're not seeking power for the sake of power. And hello, Julie Barrow and guest. We are seeking to make a difference in our community, in our elections, because that work's not being done. And so, it's the same message I had in 2018, and I remain committed, to it, as I know you all do. And so, that's where my focus is. We need to harness the energy and the power of not just the people in this room, but the Democrats all over Brooklyn to win races in Brooklyn, in Long Island, and really across the country. We have those numbers and we have that ability. I'm happy to take any questions. And thank you all for all of the work that you do to help Democrats get elected.
Thanks so much, Doug. And just a preview of something we're going to talk about a little later. We do have a whole bunch of flyers here and a sign-up sheet for Knock Your Block, which is something that we all can do in our own neighborhoods to help remind people about this election and get out the vote for Kathy Hochul, because it looks like it could be a really close race. So I hope everyone will pitch in on that. Does anyone have a question for Doug? Anybody we haven't heard from yet? I want to try to give everyone a chance to speak, either on Zoom or in the room. Okay. Do you want to go ahead, Debbie? Let me get you the mic.
It's related to what I said before. So when we make any when we have any opportunity to speak to people about the election, even though it's a little late at this juncture. So we're not just speaking about Kathy Hochul, right? We're speaking about our local state senator, assembly member, and those 4 issues, right? We're not just going to speak about Kathy Hochul.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to be clear about that. And also, in the past, I've written an email up to people in my building, and I think that can be a really helpful tool to write up an email and send it to people in your building. And I mean, of course, I try to stay, not Democratic only, but about the election and about the candidates and all of that. So that can be helpful too.
Thanks, Debbie. Doug, do you have anything to add on that?
Me? Is that a question to you, Tony?
Yeah, just wanted to see if you wanted to respond to Debbie's points.
No, I think everything she said is accurate, and we should be doing the work that we need to do to get, not just Hochul, but I've been looking for opportunities. For example, if Yuen Chu, who was running in the new Senate district, looking for opportunities for people who want to do more than just Hochul, to find if there are joint canvassing events. And I encourage people to reach out in that race, in Mathilde Frontis's race, obviously Max Rose's race, to see how you can be helpful. I also just wanted to say I'm sorry that I couldn't be there in person. I have childcare obligations, and if I have to jump off, I'll try to jump back on, but I do have to put some kids to bed in a little bit. So sorry I couldn't join you all in person.
Thanks, Doug. We understand, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us tonight. And I also want to emphasize, yes, there are definitely some races. The Yuen Chu district overlaps a little bit with our assembly district, and she definitely needs our support. Oh, Diana's telling me it doesn't? Okay, I thought it did. I have not learned the new state Senate districts yet.
That's right.
Bye. So, okay, I think we caught a little bit of that. So I stand corrected, but it is nearby, and there's also. Sorry, we only caught part of that.
It's adjacent. Jim Brennan is saying it's adjacent.
It's
Okay.
immediately adjacent in Kensington, Sunset Park, and Bensonhurst.
Exactly.
Thanks, Jim. So definitely, we want to support those candidates, and there is a big canvass in South Brooklyn this Saturday for both Yuen Chu and Mathilde Frontis, and I'll share that information with you in an email coming up, and we'll also talk about how you can support Kathy Hochul and inform people about the ballot proposals. But I think we need to move on to the next step of our agenda, which is going to be electing officers of the ADC. So every 2 years, after we elect the county committee, when the ADCs form, they elect just a few officers to keep the thing running. So I'm running for re-election as chair of the ADC, and then after, I'll say a couple words about that, then we'll hear from the folks who are running for vice chair, for the 2 secretary roles, and for treasurer. So I'll keep this brief. It's been an honor and a learning experience leading this ADC, and I'm not seeking any public office, but I think that there's enough people like me in those offices, and I'm really here to support the next generation of leaders coming up through the Democratic Party, and I want to make sure that our party has room for young people, for people of color, for people that have not traditionally held public office. And if I can do a little bit with the power that I have to help make that happen and help make our party more welcoming of everybody who wants to participate, that's why I'm doing this. I had a great experience just this past Sunday with one of our new county committee members, Amy Platzmere. We canvassed in Kensington, and we knocked on every door of the people that the county party appointed to county committee seats in our assembly district at the last county committee meeting. So while we're not happy with how that took place in a surprise appointment that threw a lot of people who have served for many years off county committee, we do want those people to feel totally welcome to be part of our county committee, and we want to get to know them. And if they, want to participate in this work, I think many of them didn't know that they were appointed to county committee, but, they're going to be welcome at all our meetings. And, I hope that in 2024, some of those folks will be, organizing with us and, petitioning with us, and that we can all work together. Because there's no reason, there's enough county committee seats for everyone who wants to participate in our party. There's 4,000 seats in Brooklyn, and we can certainly make room for everybody. We don't need to run against each other. We don't need to knock each other out. So that's what I'm going to work towards. And I'm excited to have you all here with me, and I hope we can work on this together. So we're going to hear from the other candidates for these officer roles, and then we're going to conduct a vote. The next candidate is Courtney Adrian. She's running for re-election as vice chair of the ADC. And she, I believe, is not able to join us tonight because of a family situation. So Nick has graciously volunteered to read the statement that she sent in. I'm going to turn it over to Nick, speaking on behalf of Courtney.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Courtney Adrian, and I'm an incumbent running for ADC Vice Chair. You can always tell that the thing you're doing is right and important when those with power spend a lot of time and effort to crush you, as the Brooklyn Dems have tried to do to this ADC and the county committee overall. Because of this, a functioning 44th ADC has never been more important than it is now. And so I'm happy to continue my work here. Over the next 2 years, I look forward to continuing the activism that has defined this group. Our neighbors look to us to help them understand local politics in a world where local coverage can be sparse, although the city and Hellgate are such welcome recent additions to the landscape, and we should take pride in that. We work to increase voter participation on our blocks even during times of low democratic enthusiasm, like in this midterm cycle. We pressured the New York City Board of Elections to conduct better, less chaotic, easier to access elections. And I genuinely look forward to onboarding all the new ADC members who were involuntarily added to the county committee, but want to become involved anyway over the next 2 years. Welcome. I hope they bring new energy to our mission of improving the Brooklyn Democratic Party. Sorry I couldn't be there tonight, but I look forward to organizing with you for power for the next 2 years. Courtney.
Thanks very much, Nick, and thanks, Courtney, for stepping up once again. It's been really great working with you over the last few years. And next we have, so our secretary role in our first ADC meeting, we decided to split it into two roles, the recording secretary and the corresponding secretary. So this year, running for corresponding secretary, we have Diana Gonzalez, who's been serving as treasurer of the ADC. And if Diana could come up and speak to us for just a moment. She's also been working tonight on helping everybody check in and getting set up for our voting process. But I'm just going to invite Diana up. She's also the president of CBID, so she keeps busy.
Don't I?
I'll turn it over to Diana.
So first up, in case anyone was curious, we're at quorum. We're at 78, and we only need 58. So that's great. Thank you, Emmett, for helping me check everyone in, and I apologize for those of you who waited in the waiting room for a really long time. That was because I was marking each of you down individually to make sure that we can all send you a vote. So for those of you who don't know me, hello, I'm Diana Gonzalez. For those of you who are here in person, welcome. This is where CBID meets every month. Usually we're around the side in the gym, but if you ever feel like checking us out, our next meeting is Thursday the 17th. Previously I was, or I guess I currently am, the ADC's treasurer. I am pivoting over to run for corresponding secretary because I just feel like it's a little bit of a better fit for me. I'm very excited to take over from the folks who've resigned from the secretary positions. get like a really nice website up there, and I'm very excited on working with folks on the county committee to create materials to disseminate when we go out canvassing. So those are where my head is at, and I'm definitely interested in hearing what everyone else's thoughts are about how we can better communicate with the electorate at large that we represent. So that's all I really have to say about that. Thank you all for coming and making this organization possible. It's really gratifying to see that it can be done well and that people care and want to participate even with all of the craziness that's going on in the party right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Diana. And for the other secretary role, we have a new member who has stepped forward to run for that position. This is the role of recording secretary, so the person that'll be preparing minutes of our meetings and other records for the ADC. And Amy Platzmere has stepped up. She couldn't be here tonight because she had a school obligation, but I'm going to read her statement. This is from Amy. Amy says, I am a new county committee member, and I'm hoping to be the next recording secretary of ADC 44. After a number of years doing political work in far-flung races, I am now more excited by local Democratic politics and bringing necessary transparency to our party in Brooklyn. I've been recording secretary for boards and PTAs for 15 years and hope you will entrust me to keep the record of what happens in this group. Thank you for being part of the leadership in our fair borough. So that is Amy's statement. And the final office that we need to fill is treasurer of the ADC. And James Billsborough, county committee member, has stepped up to run for that. He is joining us on Zoom. And I also want to give James credit for helping with he shepherded our ADC rules. He was on the group that helped put together our rules amendments and did great work on that. So thanks for joining us, James. I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Tony. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. Again, my name is James Billsborough. I'm an attorney. I practice environmental law and consumer protection law. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. I'm actually on the road for work, and I have a court filing due tonight. So I will be relatively brief. I've gotten to know a lot of you over the past several years. It's been a great experience. I've been a member of the ADC since its inception. And as Tony said, I served as the chair of the rules committee that drafted the ADC rules. As a candidate for treasurer, I have modest yet attainable goals. I understand from the mentorship of the outgoing treasurer, Diana, that we're required to make quarterly filings with the state to disclose our expenditures. So I will fulfill that task. I'm very detail oriented. My job requires it. And I'm also very familiar with complying with procedures for filings. So I think I'll do that well. And I also intend to hold at least one annual fundraiser to raise money to cover our expenses. Finally, I'll be transparent in the event that anyone wants to know how our money is spent. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, James. And yes, spending money is something that we definitely need to think about in this ADC because these meetings do cost a little bit and setting up the mailers do. So I look forward to working with James and coordinating at least one fundraiser to raise a few dollars for these meetings. So we offered every member the opportunity to run for these officer positions, but as you probably know, in volunteer groups, often folks need to be asked to step up to run for these things, and I think we're really fortunate that these folks agreed to step up. We have set up an electronic voting system, and thanks to Diana for spending a lot of time figuring that out with me. So we can take a vote, but I would also love to have more time for discussion with all of you. Since there's one candidate running for each office, we could also do this by unanimous consent. So I move that we elect the 5 uncontested candidates for ADC officers by unanimous consent. Second. Okay, and there is a second. So is there any objection to the election of Anthony Malone as ADC chair, that's me, Courtney Adrian as vice chair, Diana Gonzalez as corresponding secretary, Amy Platzmere as recording secretary, and James Billsborough as treasurer. Is there any objection? Okay, we'll check on Zoom as well.
No objection.
No objection.
Okay, it seems like there is no objection. There being no objection, the motion has passed and the ADC officers are elected. So, thank you very much. There's one other voting item on this meeting, and it's a technical change to our rules. I sent an email out with the text of this just before the meeting at about 6:40, and Nick is also going to put it in the chat on Zoom. But I'll explain it to you right now. It's pretty simple. So the executive committee of the Democratic Party, the district leaders, voted, I believe, in August to change the party rules to require that ADCs meet within 30 days after the county committee meeting. And that creates a conflict with our ADC rules, because our ADC rules require 30 days notice be sent to members, but we don't know when the county committee meeting is going to end. The last two county committee meetings have taken two separate dates to conclude, and we don't know what's going to happen with the next one. So it's not possible to send 30 days notice within 30 days of that meeting ending. So the proposed change to the rules is that only for ADC organizing meetings, which happen after the county committee meeting, that the notification requirement would be changed to 15 days instead of 30 days. So we have time to plan a meeting and draft a notice and send it out to members. And there are copies of this meeting in the Zoom chat. There's also some copies in the back of the room if anyone wants to take a look at them. Does anyone have any questions about this proposed amendment to the ADC rules? Okay, so we have a motion from Jim, but I just wanted to see if anyone has any questions before we vote on it. Does anyone have a question?
Comments?
Yes, you can add a comment. Go ahead.
Sounds intelligent.
Okay, thanks. And yes, Jack says sounds necessary from the back. Any questions? Okay, so it sounds like there are no questions. So I move that we adopt the proposed amendment to ADC Rule Number 5 regarding meeting notice. And the motion is seconded. Is there any objection to the adoption of this amendment by unanimous consent? So if anyone has an objection, please say so now. It sounds like there is no objection. So hearing no objection, the motion passes. And thank you. We will send an update on the ADC, the revised ADC rules to everyone via email when we send the minutes of this meeting. So moving on with our agenda. Now we have some items that were proposed by members for discussion. And one topic that several people mentioned was petitioning, talking about how petitioning went this year, what could be better, and what we would do differently. And the first thing I would say about that before I turn it over to you all is that this was an extraordinarily difficult year for petitioning because of the suit over the maps and the maps being thrown out, and we actually got the new election districts after the petitioning window had started, which created an almost impossible task for Dan Campanelli, who was working on this, and myself and the other folks in the ADC who were trying to figure out where people are going to run when petitioning had started and we didn't even know what the election districts were. So hopefully we're not dealing with that again in 2024, although if the assembly districts are redrawn, maybe we'll be dealing with new districts. It is possible. But I would love to hear your thoughts on how things could be done better, or what you would do differently. And since Sharon Harkey proposed this question, if she is with us on Zoom, I wonder if she'd like to say anything about it first.
Hi, thanks. I hope that I'm not going to be reinventing the wheel here, but my feeling is that at least one aspect of the petitioning that could be done better next time, I hope, is making sure that people who have never run before, if they're first timers, that we need to perhaps in some way keep tabs on them in some form or fashion to make sure that they are getting the names on their petitions in a timely enough manner, and keep the communication open with them. And I would certainly be willing to participate in anything that would, if there's like a team of people who's going to follow up with newbies, that to check in with them after a week or so and find out how they're doing, so that we can better make plans if they need help. I know we lost a number of key people this time around because their counterparts weren't getting any signatures at all, and we can try to avoid that next time. So as I said, if somebody wants to organize this, don't look to me for that, but I'll be happy to take part. And so I don't know if, as I said, if Rep Your Block is already thinking about this, or NKD, or anybody else, but I think that we can do better, and it shouldn't be that hard, I think. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Sharon. So I'd love to hear from some other folks, but just for folks that don't know what Rep Your Block is, I think most of us do, but Rep Your Block is an organization that was founded a few years ago by New Kings Democrats to help people run for county committee across Brooklyn. And here in 44, we've been fortunate to have a very good collaboration with Rep Your Block, where they've recruited new people, and they've turned them over to the ADC and to Dan Campanelli, who's put them on petitions. And we've done that without any conflicts until this year, when county leaders also decided to throw a bunch of people into the mix at the last minute. So I would hope that we can have more partnership with Rep Your Block and use their resources along with our resources to help people get involved. And I see that Cheryl has something. Do you want to come up, or do you want to bring the mic to you? I'll bring you the mic. Just introduce yourself.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Cheryl Kraus, and I am an honorary member of this committee now because I am one of the people who was in exactly the position that Sharon just described, and I would like to thank her, first of all, for bringing this issue to everybody's attention. I think we need to, in recruiting new members, and believe me, I am very much welcoming the recruitment of new members, I think we need to, they need to understand that it's not a big job, but it is a job. I see another honorary member sitting right here who was a member of county even longer than I was. I was there for nearly 20 years. I think that she was there even longer than I. Yes, and both of us were removed from the committee because we had an unreliable petitioning partner. So, people who are going to commit to this need to understand that it's not only themselves that they are responsible for, not only their own seats, but for the other people who are running in their same election district. And thank you, Sharon. That's about it. And join CBID.
Thank you, Cheryl. And by the way, the person that Cheryl was referring to is our long-serving member, Renee Cafiero, who is here tonight and was at all the county committee meetings. And yeah, it is truly outrageous that she was pushed out of her appointment spot this year, and we will certainly work to make sure that that doesn't happen to anyone again, that we can all work together. Does anyone else have any thoughts on petitioning? Yes.
Hi, my name is Catalina, and this is my complete first time going to any kind of meeting like this. I'm a rank beginner newbie that was recruited by Rep Your Block. So there are definitely things flying over my head that I'm not understanding. And I don't want to take up everybody's time with my ignorance, but so I have one question and just one more comment that as a completely new person who's even just figuring out what exactly is the work of county committee, I have to say Rep Your Block walked me right through it, just held my hands, and I came to it from the perspective of someone who thought, okay, it's time to know more about how the sausage is made. I want to understand how stuff happens at the local level, and that this felt like a way to become involved and to serve. I still don't know exactly how much that will be true, but I'm learning. And unfortunately, a lot of the things I've learned are really unsavory. So, really, really dispiriting. The whole thing about the fake people being put on ballots to run all of a sudden who didn't know they were running. I mean, just horrible stuff that is really disappointing. So I guess I'm kind of wondering about the people getting knocked off who've been doing it for years. So I don't understand how that happened. You would know how to do it, right? So you have to petition. We were told to do that and how to get our names on it. So I don't understand how people who've been doing it would get knocked off. Yes, I will. So that's one question. Okay, and my second question is because I was told I wasn't running against anybody, that you would be just filling a spot, that there were 4,000 seats and you would be filling one of them. And then it turns out, lo and behold, all of a sudden you're actually running for something. I didn't even know I was doing that. But my other question is I was just looking at being a poll worker. Are we considered an elected official and therefore not eligible to be a poll worker? Good. Okay. I just wanted to make sure of that. Thanks.
Yes, we are definitely eligible to be poll workers. Many of our members are poll workers.
Okay, so how people got knocked off. Two things happened. One was that when you, as you know, because you ran, you have to collect a certain number of signatures to qualify to be on the ballot. The election districts, because of redistricting, the election districts became much bigger this year. I and Renee used to be, well, we still are actually in the same ED, and I used to collect 25 signatures, and that was good for both of us because Renee has a disability. So 25 signatures, we were on the ballot. That was it. This year, we were required to collect 50 signatures, and another potential committee member was recruited, and I believed that he was going to be collecting the other 25 signatures besides my 25. I did my 25, I handed them in, and subsequently, like the day before the signatures were due, we found out that my partner had collected no signatures. The next step, that would have guaranteed me a place on the ballot. The next step would have been to be appointed to committee. I wasn't running anymore. I'm now being appointed by our assembly member possibly, or a district leader. And they were unable to do that partially because of the lack of signatures, but not only. And then the next thing that happened, but I was still assured that I was going to get a spot because nobody was going to be running against me anyway. Then we found out that the county leadership enlisted these people who had most of whom had no idea that they were being enlisted in a separate slate. So they ran a slate of people against those of us who were incumbents, basically, who had been there for a long time, but hadn't qualified. We were appointed.
Who's they?
The county leadership.
I'm going to jump in.
Rob
Just,
Neese.
yeah, just for 1 second. At the county committee, but thank you, Cheryl, for that explanation.
I don't want to monopolize this meeting.
No, that's okay. So I'll just,
You're welcome.
one more detail about that meeting. This was the October 3rd county committee meeting. And, you know, traditionally in the past, every assembly district has submitted their own list of appointees, because typically not every seat gets filled for the reasons that Cheryl mentioned. And we did that, as we always did. We had an open process where anyone who wanted to be appointed could sign up, and it was mostly people like Cheryl and Renee who just fell short of the signature requirement but still wanted to serve. We submitted that list in advance, as we were supposed to, by the party, and then we found out hours before that county committee meeting that the party, somebody had submitted another slate competing against all of our appointees. And that slate was elected because we believe the chair of the county committee, Arlene Alvarado Macala, was holding about 200 proxy votes, which was enough to determine the outcome of every vote in that meeting. So despite everybody in the room seeming to be in favor of our slate, and no one in the room willing to speak in favor of this other slate, that's what happened. But to your point earlier, there are enough county committee seats for everyone. I firmly believe that. And if anyone approaches us and says, I want to serve on county committee, we would never turn them away. And if we run out of seats, I'm sure that there are some people that would say, okay, I've done this for a bunch of years, I'll let someone new take this role. People have said that to us. So it's not necessarily, it shouldn't be a competition. But I think Julie is waiting on Zoom. She had something to add, so I wanted to turn it over to her.
Hi. It's okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say that, I'm able to be here tonight because my ED partner helped me to collect signatures. As a parent of a young toddler and someone who was starting a new job, I really was not able to get out and collect signatures. So I would love to think in the next round how I can give back and how others might be able to give back in that way, to help others who might not be able to collect signatures because different things going on in their life. But I just wanted to raise that, especially, Tony, to your point about making sure that everyone has access to this process.
Thanks very much, Julie. I think we have a question. Let me just get you the mic so we can hear you.
Yeah, so I just want to make a comment about collecting signatures because it was my first time too.
For the folks on Zoom, just introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry, my name is Roberta Entrada. We had to collect a larger number of signatures as well, and there were three of us. One, it turned out, was on vacation, but the other person was around, and we coordinated. That's what we did. I knew how many signatures we had to get, and when I got a certain amount, I called her, how many can you get? We went back and forth like that. And I think that's how it has to be, that within your little group, of who's going to collect signatures for that particular spot, you have to coordinate yourselves. I mean, it seems like the easiest thing to do. You just have to know the number and be sure you hit it. As for the corruption on the other end, I can't speak to that. I hope we can do something about it.
That's why we're
Thanks very much, Roberta. I think Diana has something in the back. Do you want to just come forward? Great. And if anyone else has anything to add, we can probably have one more comment on this before we move on. So if you're on Zoom, just raise your hand.
So this past year with the petition collection was interesting and wild, not just because of the redistricting, but also because a law was implemented allowing the Board of Elections to draw the EDs much bigger than normal. And this is a way for to help the BOE with poll worker recruitment, because they have to have poll workers for each ED, so it allows them to have fewer poll workers. So this was a common sense reform to improve the function of elections at the BOE that resulted in our EDs getting a lot bigger, which meant that our signature requirement got a lot bigger. And that's especially the case in areas that have really high voter engagement, like you see in much of our district. district. So I think this was a bit of a learning experience year for us of realizing that what had pretty much worked before doesn't quite work anymore. And all of us are going to be talking about how we can anticipate which EDs are likely to struggle to qualify and how we can provide support for that. And for folks who do have an easier time with it, like I live in an ED that's really tiny. I just banged it out, no problem. And then I was trying to qualify you guys and I didn't quite get enough. So folks in my kind of situation can definitely go and help out. But this time it was kind of like we didn't really realize the problem until it was too late. Next time we're going to have a much better idea of what we're walking into. So that's one thing I'll say. And then, yeah, we are going to redistrict again. I think it's entirely possible it's chaotic another time around, but you know what? We got a trial run this time. We're going to be amazing at it next time.
Thanks, Diana. And I see that Gina has her hand raised, so I just wanted to introduce her. Gina was the Assembly District Coordinator from Rep Your Block who was working with us this past round. I'll turn it over to Gina.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. So I wanted to add in terms of how we were supporting people. Everything everyone has shared already gives it an idea of how we got stretched and challenged. But in addition to dealing with and supporting the people who were out there getting signatures, as we moved on, like Tony, you coordinated with me and others coordinated with me. We worked together to look at how many people needed signatures and then try to pull volunteers to go out and actually get signatures for people in other areas. So we definitely did that. And I would say at the beginning of this process, put your name on a list of volunteers who can just be available as necessary. If you can't commit to a larger role, just be there so we can say, hey, can you just grab some signatures in this area or that area? So that will cover some of the slack.
Thanks very much. Yes, that is a great idea. And I want to shout out our assembly member, Bobby Carroll. He actually went and collected some signatures for me because I had a broken leg during petitioning. So if we can all pitch in and help other people, get those last few signatures to get over the finish line, that will make a huge difference. There's so much that could be said about this, but I do want to get on to the rest of our agenda. But if you want to continue this discussion, Nick is going to drop a link in the chat where you can sign up for any of the topics we talk about tonight to join a small group conversation about that, which we'll have, after the election. So I encourage you to sign up. If you're here in the room and you're not seeing the chat, you can sign up at the back of the room before you go. Just indicate on the sign-up sheet that you want to talk more about petitioning or about any of the other topics we will talk about tonight. So I think we're going to move on to the next section of our agenda. But thanks for all those comments about petitioning, and I agree that we're going to, really get it together and knock it out of the park next time. So thanks for that, Diana. So next up, we've got our member Dave Stein proposed a conversation about the county committee meeting, and we've already touched on this a little bit, but I'll just give a real quick summary, and then I'll go to Dave and other folks who have things to say. But for those who weren't able to be there, the county committee meeting once again happened in two segments. The first meeting failed because they couldn't get the electronic voting system to work. So they said, and that's what happened back in 2020 as well. We were on Zoom for I think a total of 23 hours, 26 hours, something like that, while they were trying to get the voting system to work. This doesn't happen in other committee meetings. And I think that it might be that they're looking for a particular result to come out of the voting system rather than just running it as it was intended to be run. But that's just speculation. So the first county committee meeting, which many of you showed up for, was adjourned without getting through even a quarter of the agenda. Then they reconvened it at noon on a Monday, which of course was very difficult for a lot of people to attend. And at that second meeting, we believe that the chair of the county committee was holding more than 200 proxy votes. And I think some district leaders were also holding above 100. So, about, I would say 300 people managed to show up at noon on a Monday, county committee members who wanted to participate, and I think they were outvoted by 1 or 2 people. And that's how our appointees were voted down, and how that also happened in Assembly Districts 51 and 58 and 52. You know, people that were in line to be appointed to county committee seats were rejected. And another thing that I was especially disappointed about is that proposals to reform the party rules, which were put together by folks from New Kings Democrats and Rep Your Block and a coalition of reform-minded political clubs, never even came up for a vote. And we were told that the way the rules were submitted was incorrect, although we followed exactly the procedure that was emailed to people. And we also were told that one word was incorrect in the opening paragraph, which you would think in a committee meeting someone would be able to make a motion or reach out to another committee member to correct one word in a filing, but that never took place, and the proposals never came up for a vote. And one of those proposals would have limited the number of proxies any one member could hold, which I think would make the biggest difference, because then we wouldn't have the situation where one person can outvote every member in a meeting. So that's the situation on the county level. I just wanted to say one thing on an optimistic note, which is that this year there were more reform-minded district leaders elected than ever before. There was a campaign called Brooklyn Can't Wait, and a record number of new folks ran for these positions and all pledged to reform the party, and 13 of them were elected. And at the vote to re-elect the party chair, it was closer than it's ever been. The party chair was re-elected with 23 out of 44 district leaders, so the barest of majorities. So that makes me very optimistic for 2024. If we keep organizing, and if we support folks in other assembly districts who are organizing, these party leadership roles shouldn't be, you know, things that are held for life, but, you know, it's a democracy. People should be able to run for these offices, and I think that people that believe in, you know, participation in our party hopefully will prevail in those next elections. If Dave is with us, I wanted to see what he has to say about this. Dave, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Hey. I'm just waiting to be muted. Okay, like you guys are muted. Good. Sorry, I caught something, so my voice is cracking, and that's why I didn't show up in person today. I don't want to infect you all with a sore throat. I just was wondering if there's any action going on to find out what the vote tallies were and from whom, especially because of what you noted, Tony, last cycle. They said, oh, look, we won. And then we're like, we see the votes you actually didn't win. And they were like, oh, whoopsies. It's a real short version. So I was wondering if we're any closer to getting the actual vote totals and see who had what proxies.
Thanks for that question, Dave, and thanks for highlighting that. That's another problem with this last meeting, is that they still haven't released the voting results, and many county committee members have questions because they announced a quorum of 750 at the beginning of the meeting, but then all the votes had totals around 450. So where did the other 300 people go? Did they check in and then walk out? It's not clear. There is a letter that's now signed by 132 people, mostly county committee members. And if you'd like to sign on to it, we will put the link in the chat on Zoom, and I can share it with the folks here in the room after the meeting. But it's basically demanding that they show how the votes were tallied, who is holding proxies. It's been 30 days now. The party did respond to this statement, and the party's executive director said that they are working on a certification process for the results. So we're not sure how long that'll take, but we will certainly update you if there's any more developments. But for now, I encourage you to sign on to that letter if you can. And Nick will put it in the chat. Any other questions or comments on the recent county committee meeting? Oh, there's one on Zoom, I think.
Hi, everyone. I'm just going to talk first in case I see you, Stephanie. Hopefully that's okay. My name is Todd Schechter. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Hi, Tony and everyone else. I was at that county committee meeting. It was my first, and it's only steeled my resolve to do whatever we have to do. And to that end, in addition to the collaborative, communication-based outreach. I'd like to know, like, if there's been discussions on other efforts to keep the light shined on this kind of malfeasance and to keep the pressure on beyond the letter. I'm glad to hear that's happening, and I would love to hear any more information about that, or any other next steps that we can use to keep the pressure on them in the meantime.
Thanks for that question, and thanks for coming to those meetings as well. So we have county committee members have been speaking about this, and I hear from a lot of them. I'm also the communications director for New Kings Democrats, so we do a lot of organizing around this. And one thing we did back in 2020 was filing lawsuits against the party, and we thought about that. But the problem with that is it is very expensive, and the county leaders are very well connected with lawyers. I mean, they have Abrams, Spencerman, and other major law firms that work very closely with them, and they can basically appeal forever. And the appeals, add an enormous amount of expense, and everything takes more than a year, possibly until the next meeting before these things would be resolved. So the consensus is, unless someone wanted to take this case on pro bono, it's probably not worth filing a lawsuit at this point. And the best remedy we might be able to get would be just having another meeting, which could turn out the same way. So personally, I think, although I'd love to hear other people's thoughts, our best way to put pressure on them is in the court of public opinion, and just continuing to tell people about this, and when there are news stories about it, to amplify that and document it for other Democrats here in Brooklyn who don't know what's being done in their name by their own party. So that's my thought. I know, Andrew, you've had your hand raised. Do you want to come up and speak?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Andrew Donacouch. Thanks to all the leadership for organizing the meeting and everyone for speaking tonight. The first comment I wanted to make was just about the vote totals, and I'm glad you brought up the lawsuit, because the lawsuit is the only reason that we have the vote totals from that 2020 meeting, because the vote totals were entered as an exhibit in that lawsuit. We were never actually released those vote totals by the county party. It's only because I think it was maybe Dave was the primary litigant on that, or one of them, but only because I was following it along and reading through the exhibits that I noticed that they had filed. I'm sure somebody who's paying more attention knew that all ahead of time. So in any case, that's the party doesn't want us to know, and it was only public from that last one because it was in the lawsuit. So I was wondering if there was going to be a lawsuit on this one, and I appreciate your point, Tony, about there not being realistic remedy there. I think the one remedy I think might be relevant is to try to get a preliminary injunction to enjoin the county party from actually organizing the next organizing meeting, because it's actually the organizing of the organizing meeting that keeps them in power. And if we could get a court to agree that a neutral third-party arbiter should actually be running that meeting, and all they would have to do is make sure that the voting works and that the agenda is followed, and the reformers would win. So that's my perspective. We need a third-party arbiter.
Thanks for that, Andrew. So, and folks who are interested in pursuing that more, or who have some legal expertise or connections to lawyers, definitely, email me or respond on that form that Nick put in the chat, and we can keep this conversation going. I think there was somebody else on Zoom who wanted to speak.
Yeah, can I talk? This is Stephanie Latour. I just wanted to, I was going to say before, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not an expert in election law, but it just seems so outrageous. Like, how can these county leaders get away with this kind of stuff? I mean, that's just like basic democracy. You have to be able to trust the voting process. But I hear your point. It's probably not worth doing a lawsuit. But I'm just wondering, like, are there any like state committee people that can put pressure on Rodney's and whatever, and the leadership in the party, that, because I mean, if we end up losing some of these elections that, you're talking about, it's just like, can't someone in the party that has more power than Rodney's say, listen, we can't run the party this way. We're losing elections. There's just so much infighting. You're turning people away who want to help. And this is just a disaster. I can't believe she's been getting away with it for so long. And it just seems like something's going to be done. I don't know what.
Thanks, Stephanie. So I think this is definitely a conversation we need to continue and look at ways what the levers are. But since we do have, I think if Doug and Lori are still on, if either of them wanted to say a quick word about, is there anybody higher up on the state level who might be persuaded to take action on this? Okay, I don't know if they are still with us. But so that's something we need to look into, certainly. All district leaders are also state committee members. And, I think to Stephanie's point about the election coming up, if we hope it turns out well, and a lot of people are organizing, we're all going to be knocking on doors. But, if Democrats lose races that they should be winning here in Brooklyn and elsewhere in New York City, then I think there should be, a way to hold these folks accountable. And, Jay Jacobs is the chair of the State Democratic Party. And I think, he would be one person to hold accountable for whatever happens with this election. So I think that there are a couple other hands raised on Zoom. Oh, Lori has her hand raised. Go ahead, Lori. I think you're still muted. Okay, you're still muted, Lori.
Got it.
There you go.
It's a different format. Somehow I'm on. Okay, so yeah, Jay Jacobs is definitely the head of the party. But I would not count on him to bring down pressure. Us as leaders are supposed to be, and we work hard, and I've been around for a very long time. I've voted for people, I've voted against people, I've been a thorn in many sides for many years. She ran people against me, against the people in my district, against a lot of old timers. It's complicated. Beyond that, it's complicated. I don't know what the future holds. My feeling is Rodney's is in law school. She just had a baby. I don't know how much longer. She has not certainly said anything that she will be in power. But it's something to consider for the future. We also have state committee meetings, but there's very little that can be done in those because those are statewide issues that we're voting on, or nominations for statewide office. So it really has to come from within. And you have to understand also that a lot of people who were not elected, who had been on county committee for many, many years, are now seniors, are not as active as they used to be, yet know everybody on their block. And because of COVID and everything else, it was very difficult for them to get out and get signatures. So there were a lot of factors involved in what's going on. But in terms of the state pulling in the reins, unfortunately, I want to say that the Democratic Party is the most disorganized party that ever existed. The Republicans on both ends of the spectrum seem to know what they're doing a hell of a lot more than we do. And that's just my own critical theory on this. And there has to be compromise on all different levels. And I think the only way to get people in positions of authority is to really sit down one-on-one and get somebody to meet you halfway on both ends. As a practical matter, not as what I want to see. I'd like to see other things happen, but as practical, because I'm pragmatic, I think that we need to push it maybe in a different way. So I don't think Joe Jacobs is the answer, unfortunately.
Thanks for that, Lori. And if anybody wants to continue, obviously there's a lot more to be said about this, but I do want to get to the rest of our agenda. So Nick put in the chat under live cam, you'll see a link to that statement that you can sign on to asking for the release of the voting information. And further up in the chat, you can also see the AD44 groups link where you can sign up to join a conversation about any of these topics that will be ongoing after this meeting. I would love to keep speaking with you about this. And before we move on, the last thing I wanted to say is, I think it's important to keep this conversation about changing systems rather than changing people. And I think that what we're really fighting here is a system. It's a political machine that has existed long before the current party chair and long before the chair before that. And they're just continuing to perpetuate this system. So, the current party chair, is also an assembly member, as Lori mentioned, and also, a new mother and, law student. And I'm not interested in attacking her, but I am interested in building a party where everybody who wants to participate can participate and everybody has a voice, and the structure is not designed to shut us out. And I think that, as far as the party being disorganized, that we can organize. That's one thing that we're all learning how to do. I've learned in this role how to organize a meeting, and I hope that I'm handling it well enough, although I still have a ways to go. But, we're not going to spend 10 hours trying to count the first vote because, we are running a democracy here, or we're trying to. And I think that we can continue to work together on this. So I hope you'll sign up to continue this conversation. But now we are going to move on to our next topic, which is I would like to call on Gina, if she's still with us, to just have a quick conversation about future plans for our ADC. She's going to touch on recruiting new members and reaching out to voters and exploring a party platform. And then we'd love to get your thoughts on that. Turning it over to Gina.
Okay, I'm here. Hi, so what I wanted to talk about was one of the rules we have in our charter, or rules that we have that talk about recruiting diverse members for county committee in AD44. And what I'd like to do is just solicit some ideas from people after I just give you an idea of what AD44 looks like in terms of racial makeup and area. So we are about 55% white, followed by 20% Asian, 15% Hispanic, and 6% Black. And full disclaimer, I do not know. It was unclear to me if these were before the lines were redrawn, so that there might be a slight change there. We added a portion of Prospect Heights, which is the biggest change. And what we would like to see is people from those different groups, like in this AD County Committee, we are overrepresented in the white group from Park Slope. And we'd love to see people from the other areas, geographically or racially, to get involved to help do some of that recruiting, bring people in. You would know the communities better, you would have a better sense of what mattered, and we would happily work with you to sort of bridge the gap, onboard people, and find a way to incorporate everybody. So I wanted to open it up for a few comments and suggestions, and then we'll send out a form for more ideas, and if you want to continue the discussion. So anybody have any thoughts they'd like to share in terms of what can be done in this regard?
Thanks, Gina. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Okay, I see Raul is here. You want to come forward?
Hi, Raul here. So I'm part of what used to be the 57th in Prospect Heights. And I did, actually, my part, I did try to recruit some people, African-American women, into county committee and did my best. And I want to continue to do that. I think there's definitely some gaps of communication. For instance, you know, the 77th Precinct Council is very active and very engaged, but it's kind of a different world from what the ADC is right now. And, you know, I do think maybe people showing up for those sorts of meetings, the 77th Precinct Council meetings, 78th Precinct Council meetings would help as well, because it's a little bit outside of some, you know, the Zoom and Twitter world that other people might be on. But I would be glad. I'm definitely will volunteer, especially Prospect Heights. I've been very involved in Prospect Heights for nearly 20 years, and so I would definitely like to be active in part of that conversation.
Well, thank you, Raul. I think that would be extremely helpful. And when we send out the form, if you could sign up for that, put your name down so we can contact you and work with you. And thank you for volunteering for that.
Yes, thanks for that. And Nick is putting that form in the chat once again. So if you want to help us with the outreach to just broaden, you know, who's participating in this county committee and let more people know that this is a thing they can do. Even though the elections aren't until 2024, we can start working on this now. And, you know, people can come to our meetings and organize with us whether or not they are elected members of county committee. You know, we're already saying that anyone who, you know, didn't get the appointment is still welcome to be here. And that's also true for new folks who are interested in this. You know, there's no reason to shut people out. One thing that I would also like to propose is I'd like to look into holding an event in the Kensington area and reaching out once again to the folks who were on county's slate of appointees. Because when I spoke to some of those folks this past Sunday, you know, quite a few of them are loyal Democrats and are interested, didn't know that they were on county committee, but, you know, are interested in learning more about it. So I would love if some folks can help volunteer to work on that with me, if we can organize something in that area. Eliana, let me get you the mic.
There you go. All right. This is Aliana. I live in Kensington. I don't have the bandwidth to volunteer right now, but I wonder if this is where City Councilwoman Shahana Hanif could be particularly helpful, because she is, in fact, part of the Bangladeshi community of Kensington.
Yeah, I can actually answer to that. I'm sorry. Is there other talk in the room, or can I answer? All right. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Gina.
So, yeah, thank you. So we have worked with Shahana Eliana, and in fact, in running up to this particular run, we were working with her. The people that she asked to work with us specifically had so much on their plate, they couldn't really devote that much time. And I think as we've been working with her, she herself has sort of gotten, let's say, very, very involved in the politics of producing for her job. So I think Tony's effort at outreach directly to this group, which is really what Shahana wanted to see specifically, is the best route to go at this point.
Thanks, Gina, and thanks, Eliana, for the question. I also wanted to shout out Faiza, who may be on the Zoom, because she works in the council member's office and is also an active member of our ADC, and has been a great partner in this work. So thanks to her for her help. And I wanted to just move us along, unless there's any other people waiting on Zoom. I think the next thing we were going to briefly touch on was reaching out to voters and increasing turnout. But I think I'm going to defer that to Nicole, who's going to talk in just a minute about the Knock Your Block, which is a great name, initiative that we are hoping you'll get involved in for this election. But if you're interested in talking more in the future about reaching out to voters and increasing the turnout and informing voters, there's also a spot on that form where you can sign up to continue that conversation. Before we go to Nicole, is Courtney on the Zoom? I don't know if she was going to be able to, because she was also going to speak about the platform.
I didn't see her on the Zoom.
Okay, I think she's dealing with a family situation. So the last thing I'll say before we go to Nicole is one thing a couple members have mentioned to me is that our party doesn't have a platform. And that's something the National Democratic Party does. Every year in a presidential election, they come up with a platform that is supposed to inspire voters and get people excited about the party. So that's something that we could also work on, in between elections, after this election is over. If anyone's interested in exploring that, fill out that form. I would love to, be part of a discussion group on what would a platform look like for the Brooklyn Democratic Party. But now I want to turn it over to Nicole Kata, one of our members who is helping organize this Knock Your Block program that I hope you'll all sign up for.
Thanks, Tony. Hi, everybody. I won't take up too much time. We have heard already folks talking a lot about how important the election is in under a week now, next Tuesday, November 8th. And in fact, early voting has already begun. So the election is happening right now. And we have already heard as well that, the official Brooklyn Democratic Party effort on this front is, shall we say, lackluster at best. And so that is where we can come in. And many of you in the physical room and in the Zoom room have already done a lot of work in this regard. But for those who are new to this effort, it's called Knock Your Block, just like Tony said. The idea is that turnout in Brooklyn is going to play a huge role in preventing Republicans from gaining power in New York State. And you can help as a county committee member by knocking on doors in your election district to get out the vote. And so we are just about halfway through a 2-week campaign to get out the vote for Governor Kathy Hochul in this final stretch. So that's again where you come in. There's a couple things you can do. There's a form that you can fill out that I'm happy to put in the Zoom chat. Oh, someone already did. Thank you. Where you sign up, fill out the form, and a member of Hochul's campaign will send you a custom walk sheet for your election district. Simultaneously, a rep advisor will be in about lit that you can hand out during your walks. This is an exciting opportunity to get back in touch with Brooklyn Democrats already talked with in your election district when you're petitioning to make sure that they're ready to vote. And early voting has started on Saturday, October 29th. So again, fill out the form and you will get connected and you will get lit. It looks like this. If you're in the physical room this evening, you may see some that you can pick up. And if we'll be in touch with you to get if you stop at the in the chat. Thanks.
Thank you, Nicole. And yes, we have copies of it here. For the folks that are in the room, there's a sign-up sheet in the back of the room, and we have stacks of 100 flyers for Kathy Hochul. So I encourage everybody to sign up, take some of those, and the campaign will send you a walk sheet, and you can go out and hand them out to Democrats right where you live. And turnout really does make a difference. So I hope you will all do that. So now we are drawing towards the end. We have some new business. And yes, I am going to introduce our member, Raul Rothblatt, who is going to talk about some important issues that relate to our district. So take it away, Raul.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Raul Rothblatt. So I'm here because a Girl Scout troop based in the 44th has a petition for a monument for 5 black suffragists. So first of all, there's no statues to any black women in Brooklyn at all, 0. There's 4 citywide. We have a proposal to do a monument to 5 women, including Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells, so we talk about supporting voting rights here. The suffrage movement, usually people say it started in 1848, probably started certainly before that. It took until 1920 to make that happen. So, I mean, if you imagine the generations of people that fought for that is stunning. Within that, there was blatant, open, proud racism from white supremacist racism. And in Brooklyn, we had the leading black suffragists. So Ida B. Wells moved to Brooklyn because activists here, black women, supported her, funded her first publication. Very few people recognize our leadership in this thing. So we have a location in, it's actually in the 33rd Council District. So if you're in another council, I'm hoping to get votes tonight. We have a link, I hope that's in the chat, for this proposal. So this is just to get the idea on the ballot, let the voters decide how they want to vote. But I do think it's important that we at least raise the discussion of the important contribution of the black suffragists in Brooklyn. The 33rd Council District was framed in terms of climate justice, and I kind of got some pushback, like, oh, this is not climate justice, but it actually is, because this is in the heart of downtown Brooklyn, which was I think it's universally recognized racist rezoning process that brought now 90-something story buildings to Brooklyn. So this would, I went to an assembly at the Gowanus houses right next to, the Gowanus Creek, and I brought this idea, and all the residents there were like, oh yeah, they totally understood, because they remember that their friends and the businesses and people that they knew got displaced. And so for them, for people who live down there, this was also a very emotional, visceral thing as a way to create climate justice. I think it's important, these same people, I was sitting at a table of elderly, or senior African-American women, and they did not like how the climate question was framed. And I think the way that we discuss things can alienate people. We have to make sure that we have an inclusive discussion about these things. So I think it's important. I do hope everyone joins and follows this. I will be glad to discuss this at length for hours and hours. So please email me. I'm obsessed with this history, which is fascinating, and I would be glad to discuss it after this meeting. But okay, so right now I have a goal here. So we have 107 likes on this project. I just want to get it up to maybe like 112. I don't know when this map is going to be over. The deadline was vague, so it might end tomorrow. So just a couple more likes on the project would really be helpful. I could give you. We have a link in the Zoom chat, but I can send, if anybody wants it. I'll send you the link. It's on. There's a participatory budgeting map, and if you look for Sisters in Freedom, you could find it. But it's the okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Raul. And there is a link in the chat where you can, vote on this item, and also on that form that we shared earlier, the 8044 groups. You can also sign up if you want to continue to talk with Raul about this project. You can sign up there, and I will connect you with him. So thanks, Raul. Moving on with new business, we just have a couple more things. Okay, Doug Schneider mentioned Ariel Merkel earlier. She couldn't be here tonight because she is working, because this is the busy time for the Board of Elections. But she did want to remind everybody, when you're speaking with voters, to remind them to flip their ballot, to make sure that they see all the judicial races and those ballot questions, those 4 questions. Yeah, both sides of 2 sheets. And also to explain a change about absentee voting that everybody should be aware of. This is new this year. If you vote, if you request an absentee ballot, you are not able to vote on the scanners anymore. So you have to either fill out that absentee ballot and return it at any polling place or at the Board of Elections office, or if you really want to vote at your polling place, you have to do it as an affidavit ballot. And you always have a right to file an affidavit ballot, but you can't vote on the scanners. And the reason for that change is so they could count the votes more quickly. They're able to count the absentee votes more quickly, but people aren't able to vote on scanners. So just if you're talking to people about absentee voting, let them know that once you request that ballot, you've got to do it. You've got to, vote on your absentee ballot. You can't just show up at the polling place and vote on the scanner. It is statewide as far as I know. Yes. So thanks, Ariel, for flagging that. We also had an item submitted by Jay Warshawski. Oh, that's you. Sorry, didn't recognize. I've been on Zoom for so long, I don't recognize people in person. Do you want to come up and speak about it? Great, come on up.
Good evening, all. This is sort of a parochial subject. I'm a city retiree. I don't know if there are any city employees here. There's an issue right now. The latest is that the mayor has given an ultimatum to basically take away medical coverage for all city retirees, and ultimately it will affect all current city employees. Again, it's something that went to court. It's been to the full appellate division, and the city has lost at every turn. It's being framed as the unions and the city council trying to save an alleged $600 million a year. I think that's a very ephemeral number. It's going to be an us versus them issue. And I just want to make everybody aware, if you know anybody who works for the city, and I was proud to work for the city for 27 and change, as a manager, as an analyst, off civil service lists every time, I could have worked somewhere else for 50 or 60% more. But I was tired of companies and industries going out of business, and I was delighted to get a civil service job. But if you know anybody who, this will drive people out of the civil service, and it will victimize all the people that stay in New York and pay taxes in New York, and homeowners and renters. I know I live in Windsor Terrace on a block. There are 7 or so current or retired firemen. I don't know how many lawyers, how many federal employees, but it's a civil service neighborhood. This whole section of the world is a civil service neighborhood. A member of Hochul's direct staff lives directly across from me. And she's very positive about the new administration. She worked for the former guy, and she's very positive about the current administration, which I take as a great endorsement. I just want to make you aware of this. If you know people who are currently city employees, please make them aware of this issue. There's Facebook sites and there's websites. I thank you.
Thanks very much, Jay. And if you're interested in connecting with Jay about that particular issue, just email me. You've gotten a lot of emails from the ADC email address this past week, so email me and I will connect you with him. Andrew, do you have a question? Come on up.
All right, off the cuff. At the county committee meeting, the first half, I was unable to make the second half, but at the first half, I apologize. My name is Andrew Donacouch again. When we were at the county committee meeting, I was only able to make the first half, but I was speaking with someone and I discovered that one of the other ADCs, I think maybe it's the 52, has a parliamentarian office. And I think that that's a really good thing for us to do to try to encourage the rule following, make sure that we all understand how the rules are supposed to operate, and make sure we sort of have people who really thoroughly understand the rules. And so I guess the proposal I would make, at the risk of accidentally once again proposing a role that nobody else will me and I will by default fill, I'd like to propose that we have a parliamentarian office. I don't know if this is this meeting is appropriate venue for that.
No, thanks for that, Andrew. I think that's a great idea, and I think that we can say that we'll have that in a provisional capacity. We won't add it to the ADC rules at this point because I think most of the folks that were voting, some folks have gone home, but I don't think we need to make it an official role. I think we can just, maybe we can organize that in the conversation about a party platform or in the conversation about the county committee meeting. We'll see who signs up for what, and I will plug you in with whoever signs up and see if we can keep that conversation going, because I think that's a great idea. And there are some excellent parliamentarians on county committee. you know, in 52, and in, well, I can connect you with a few different people that have real expertise in that area. And unfortunately, at the county committee meetings, they don't let those folks speak either. But we can still learn the rules. So I know it's getting late. We are coming very close to the end. I just wanted to see if, since we have Diana here, if she wants to give any quick updates on what CBID is up to, one of our local political clubs. And I also wanted to say to Courtney, I think Courtney just joined us on Zoom. Thank you for joining us. And we read your statement earlier, and you know, thanks for all your everything you've done for the ADC so far. So excited to work with you again as vice chair.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Diana, and then we will wrap it up.
Yeah, so, you know, every general election season, CBID likes to head down to South Brooklyn and help out, and this year we're doing that more than ever. We've endorsed Matilda Frontis, Ewen Chu, and Max Rose. We're doing events, a lot of combined events for them. So this Saturday, we're co-sponsoring with 6 other political clubs in Brooklyn, a rally and canvas for Matilda and Ewen. I believe that's going to go out in an email that we're sending out very, very soon. So sign up for our email list on our website, which is cbidems.org. And yeah, we have more of that stuff going on. We're constantly sending out dispatches about how to get involved and help out, and definitely want to get as many folks down there as possible. Yeah. And then I'm hearing a rumor that we might have Chuck Schumer at our next meeting. So if you ever want to like ask him tough questions, we're working on making that happen. Fingers crossed. So as soon as we know more, we'll send out a notice about that as well. I also know that we're connecting with 2 organizations that are organizing lobbying visits to our elected officials. One is focused on the environment and the other is on reproductive rights. We're going to be connecting folks with those opportunities. And yeah, we just keep on trucking, electing Democrats. So next meeting, normally our meetings are the 4th Thursday of every month, but in November and December we have these funky holidays that get in the way. So we do it on the 3rd Thursday of every month. So, excuse me, our next meeting is going to be November 17th. We don't know yet whether it's going to be Zoom or in person, so stay tuned, sign up for our emails on our website. And let's, you know, go Democrats.
Thank you, Diana. And I also want to thank Diana for working with me on setting up this elaborate electronic voting system that we didn't wind up needing, but we had it ready to go, and we would have counted everyone's votes on Zoom and in person. It was a good experience figuring that out. So we are about ready to wrap up. I just wanted to thank all of you for taking the time to be with us tonight and being part of our organizing work here in the 44th. I wanted to thank Park Slope United Methodist for this lovely space. I wanted to thank our assembly member, Bobby Carroll, and our district leaders, Lori Citron-Nipel and Doug Schneider, for joining us tonight and for supporting our work. All the people that volunteered, Nick and Victor and Amy, and so many folks helped put this together. Nicole, Gina, I know I'm forgetting some folks, but I hope that all of you will be inspired to, you know, get more involved in our work here in the 44th. And I'm also, you know, really excited to work with this next group of officers, to work again with Diana in a new role, to work with Courtney again as vice chair, and to work with Amy as our recording secretary, and to work with James as our new treasurer. I'm really excited about this group. So you'll be hearing from me more soon. Look in your email for the minutes of this meeting and for next steps. I encourage you to sign up for Knock Your Block and knock on some doors before Tuesday and on Tuesday, because this election is so important. And, you know, volunteer for other candidates in South Brooklyn who are in close races, if you can. And thanks once again, and we'll be talking with you soon. Have a great night, everybody.